Notre Dame's defense has shown flashes, but can they actually prove their strength again when they take on NC State? Plus, what's next for Jadarian Price, and how can the Irish get Jaden Greathouse more involved once he's healthy? We have got a loaded Friday mailbag. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Welcome in. This is Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. My name is Tyler Wojciak, and I'm the host. I'm a Notre Dame alum, producer at Fox Sports, and I've been covering the Irish since 2020. Today is Friday, October 10th, so happy Friday, everybody, and thank you for getting your game weekend started right here by making this your first watch or listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda. Move and be moved. And if you have not already, hit subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps the show grow. And today's Friday mailbag is packed. We're talking about whether Notre Dame's defense can truly be trusted, heading into the game against NC State, what Marcus Freeman and Chris Ash have done to spark this turnaround, and how Mike Denbrock might be holding some things back for later on in the season. We're also going to hit on what's next for Jadarian Price and Jaden Greathouse, and we're going to wrap things up with some fun ones at the end, including the best South Bend game day tips and which uniform should make a comeback. But our first question comes from @VicSiram. What do you need to see from the defense against NC State to make you believe they are truly a strength of the team once again? There's a couple things at play here. If they can shut down NC State's passing attack and completely contain Hollywood Smothers, I'm going to feel a lot better about their chances going up against USC. And if we're looking for some specific numbers, I would say around 175 yards passing for Bailey or less, at least when the game is still in doubt, right? Like if Notre Dame ends up jumping out to a huge lead and then at the end of the game in garbage time, Bailey starts padding his stats a little bit while their offense moves the ball against Notre Dame's backups, I think we can all live with that, right? And if they're able to keep Hollywood Smothers to less than 100 total yards because he's going to be involved in their run game and their pass game, I think that would be a big win for this Notre Dame defense. But I'm going to need to see it against USC before I'm ready to believe that it's a real strength. If they go out there and they shut out NC State and it's a dominant effort beginning to end, I'm going to feel a lot better about the defense, but they need to play an extremely talented offense and then shut them down in order for me to call them a strength. Because I still think back to that game against Texas A&M, which is probably the last game that Notre Dame has played where the opposing offense and the Notre Dame defense had a similar level of talent. Arkansas had some talented guys like Taylon Green, Omega Blake, but collectively, they weren't as talented as the Notre Dame defense, and it showed. So Notre Dame has to go out there and dominate an offense that is around or is on their level, right? Is on their tier. And frankly, I don't think NC State is on their tier, despite the fact that they have two really good playmakers. The rest of the group is just kind of okay, above average, or maybe even below average at certain spots. They have those two really dynamic playmakers that they're going to have to focus on in CJ Bailey and Hollywood Smothers, but I think that they're going to be able to out-talent the rest of that unit. And they're certainly more talented than Boise State, and that was evident throughout that entire game. I mean, they just dominated them. Even when Boise State went up 7-6, you knew Notre Dame was going to win that game, and they were probably going to do it pretty easily in the second half once they kind of got their stuff together. But you got to think back to last season. USC scored 35 points in the Notre Dame defense. Now, granted, that last touchdown came really late in the game, was all but decided at that point, but that is still more than any other opponent that Notre Dame played last season. Like even Ohio State only scored 34 points in the national championship game. And the guys who did the most damage to that Notre Dame defense that was top 5 in the country across the board, quarterback Jane Mayava, wide receivers Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane, like they're all back. So if this defense, which is a year removed from the Al Golden era and all that stuff, like if they're able to hold those guys in check, then I'll consider them a strength. But if they just go out there and they shut down NC State, I think that's just going to prove that they're no longer a weakness and that we don't really have to worry about the defense going up against all the overmatched teams that Notre Dame is going to face in the second half of the year. But call it a strength. We're going to have to pump the brakes on that a little bit until after USC. All right, next question. @J_Patterson3 with Devontae Smith out. Does NC State have a receiver who can truly test Notre Dame's secondary? They definitely have some talented wide receivers. I think Trell Anderson and Wesley Grimes are good players. They're not necessarily slot receivers, so I don't know if they're going to target Dallas Golden, who's going to be filling in for Devontae Smith this weekend. He is officially out, and to be honest with you, I don't know when we're going to see Devontae Smith again. I do expect him to be back this season, but I would be pretty surprised if he's able to go against USC, but then after that USC game, there's a bye week, so maybe after that bye, Smith will be out there and healthy again, and Notre Dame needs him. I think there was a noticeable shift in the secondary when he was able to play against Arkansas, and I think it's just because it's a grown man who's played a lot of football at a really high level. Devontae Smith played for 3 years at Alabama. He comes over to Notre Dame like he's seen it all, right? He's not going to be fazed by the moment. And to Dallas Golden's credit, he played really well last week in relief, but still, it's a little bit different when you're playing a true freshman compared to a senior who played in the SEC. Like, it's just not the same, even though I think Dallas Golden is going to be a very good player down the road. NC State also likes to target their tight end, Justin Jolie, I should say. I think a linebacker or safety is probably going to be on him most of the game. If NC State is going to try to target a mismatch, it's going to have to do with Hollywood Smothers because he has 21 catches this season. They really like to pass him the ball out of the backfield, and I would imagine they're going to try to get him lined up one-on-one with Notre Dame's linebackers. And I know that's been a topic of conversation so far this season, probably because Drake Bowen is the one who gave up the game-winning touchdown against Texas A&M. But honestly, I don't think they have played that bad. There have been some moments where they looked a little bit confused in their zone defense, but you could say that about the secondary as well, especially at the beginning of the season. So overall, I think Notre Dame's linebackers have been fine in coverage. They're going to be tested a little bit more this week, but I don't look at NC State's wide receiver core and say, oh, there's a clear mismatch here, despite the fact that we had our lockdown Wolfpack crossover yesterday, and my guy Kenton Gibbs said that this is the best wide receiving core that Notre Dame has faced all season. He ended up going on, so I didn't even really have time to push back on it, but I would probably say this is the fourth best receiving core that Notre Dame has seen because Miami, A&M, and Arkansas all had better receivers than NC State has. So they're going to try to find some mismatches in the Notre Dame defense, but I think they're going to focus on Hollywood Smothers. But on the topic of injury news, since I was asked about Devontae Smith, obviously it's unfortunate that he's out. Jaden Greathouse is also going to be out this weekend, but kicker Noah Burnett is expected to play this weekend. Doesn't really have anything to do with this question, but I didn't expect to see him out there. It's good to have him back because they're going to need him next week against the Trojans. All right, we got another one here. This one comes from @SamuelHoover3069. Is Jadarian Price's production inflated because defense is key so heavily on Jeremiah Love? This is a really good question. And I've been getting some questions lately about, is Jadarian Price better than Jeremiah Love? And I think it's interesting how quickly people forget all the great things that Jeremiah Love did last season, the fact that he had like 4 touchdowns in the first half against Arkansas. But the difference is that Jadarian Price has been more efficient in his carries. He has had significantly less touches than Jeremiah Love, but he has more yards per carry, more touchdowns and all that. So I get it. But as for this question and how defenses have tried to stop Price compared to Love, I do think at the beginning of the season, going up against Miami and Texas A&M, defenses were not as focused on Jadarian Price in the same way that they were focused on Jeremiah Love. Like, it was clear when Notre Dame was playing the Aggies and the Hurricanes, wherever Jeremiah Love went, there were at least 2 defenders watching him on every play. Like, I remember vividly when Notre Dame ran a wheel route to Jeremiah Love. He motioned out of the backfield, did a wheel route on the sideline. They tried to pass him the ball, and there were 2 guys all over him. So they were ready for everything that Notre Dame was trying to throw at them with Jeremiah Love. And I do think that when Jadarian Price was on the field, he was not getting that same level of attention. And maybe that's why he was able to score 2 touchdowns against Texas A&M. They just weren't really keying on him as much. However, the word is out by now on Jadarian Price. Teams know how good he is, but it just hasn't mattered. And I think that Jadarian is seeing the field at a completely different level right now. He's always been explosive, right? We knew that. He had some big touchdown runs last season. Maybe the biggest one was in the season opener against Texas A&M when he had the first touchdown of the game and the season. But he just looks like such a different back these days. He doesn't get happy feet at the line of scrimmage anymore, which opened him up to getting stuffed at the line of scrimmage so many times last season. Like, he wasn't a very efficient running back last year because, sometimes he'd get to the outside and he'd break off a long run, but there would be like 3 plays in between where he's just getting stuffed, and that can't happen. He's not doing that this year. He hits holes hard, and once he gets through, if he's in the second level, DBs have just not been able to bring him down. They take bad angles at him because they don't realize how fast he is, and even if they're able to get to him, he's too big, he's too strong, so he just sheds off the tacklers. Like, he is playing so well, but also Jeremiah Love has been running extremely hard too. The difference is Jeremiah Love has not ripped off as many home run plays this season as Jadarian Price has. Price has 7 runs of over 15 yards. Love only has 5, although he has a couple long receptions as well. I think that Jeremiah Love is due for that home run play, something like we saw against Indiana or Virginia where he just like hit the hole and was off to the races. He had a big one against Navy as well. I think he's going to get one on Saturday, but I just haven't really seen defenses play Price and Love all that differently. It's not like Love is running into an 8-man box and Price is only seeing 5 or 6 guys in there. Price is just a hot hand right now, and Notre Dame is going to continue to ride both of these guys until anyone stops him, and I just don't see that happening anytime soon. All right, we got one more quick one here at Johnny Mac. Last one on the NC State game this weekend. Who finishes with more rushing yards on Saturday, Jadarian Price or Hollywood Smothers? I think Price is going to have more because Price is going to hit on a couple long runs that is going to get him over the hump, even though I doubt he's going to have a similar number of touches because NC State is going to try to force feed Hollywood Smothers in the run, in the pass, as much as they possibly can. But NC State, their defense is so bad at tackling. Like, it's really, really bad. So they are in for a long night against Notre Dame's running backs because no one has been able to tackle those guys. And even good players like guys on Texas A&M, they have had some significant troubles as well. So I think that Smothers is going to have to work extremely hard for every single yard he gets. And don't get me wrong, he's probably going to break off a couple big plays because he's that talented, he's that elusive, and like there's a reason he has 472 yards after contact this season. But I think Price is going to have a 50-plus yard run and a couple other big chunk plays, and that is going to be why Jadarian Price has more rushing yards than Hollywood Smothers. But if Hollywood Smothers isn't able to get a ton of yards on the ground, this could get a little bit dicey. I just don't see that happening. I think Notre Dame's running backs are going to have a field day in this one. All right, we've talked about what Notre Dame needs to do this weekend. Coming up, we're going to break down who has overachieved, who's underwhelmed, and could Mike Denbrock be saving a few wrinkles for later on in the season? That's coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. So for Notre Dame, Leonard Moore delivered for the Irish in their win over Boise State. In his first game back from injury, Moore hauled in 2 interceptions and helped shut down the Boise State passing attack. With Moore on the field, this looks like an entirely different Notre Dame defense. He's one of the best players in the entire country on that side of the ball. And when the pressure was on, Moore came through. No hesitation, no delay. And just like Leonard Moore delivers for Notre Dame, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. All right, here's my pick for this week. If you've been watching or listening to the show since the preseason, you know that I've been pretty high on the Chiefs. Well, they have not gotten off to the best of starts, but they're getting 2.5 points on Sunday at home against the Lions. If the Chiefs are underdogs at home, I'm going to take that 10 times out of 10. So give me the Chiefs plus 2.5 against the Lions. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Okay, next up, we got a question from Ryan Toussaint, who asks, what are your top 3 surprises and top 3 disappointments on Notre Dame's team so far this season? Let's start with the surprises, and we'll go one by one. The first thing that jumps out to me is just how well C.J. Carr has played out of the gate. And I've obviously been really high on C.J. Carr for a really long time. I thought that he would eventually become a great quarterback for Notre Dame. I just did not expect him to be this good this early on in his career. And for as high as I have been on C.J. Carr, I've always tried to express patience, right? And I would say that during the offseason, like, look, he's a redshirt freshman who missed basically all of last season recovering from an elbow injury, and I didn't really know what to expect from him, especially when you consider the fact that Notre Dame started out on the road against Miami, who is arguably the best team in the country, and then Texas A&M, who is also a borderline top 5 team. I thought that it would be a slow start for Notre Dame because they would have to work their way into the offense with C.J. Carr as quarterback. And honestly, in the first game, they kind of held him in bubble wrap. He wasn't throwing the ball downfield. They were just throwing screens, a lot of RPO stuff. And then in the second game, they didn't really have a choice. They had to throw the ball downfield to keep up with Texas A&M and the amount of points that they were putting up on their offense. And all of a sudden, C.J. Carr looked like he had been a quarterback for 3 years in college. Like, he already looks like the player that we were all hoping he would be when he committed to Notre Dame out of high school. So I have just been so impressed by how good he has played. And sure, it hasn't been perfect, right? He's missed some throws. He certainly missed a couple against Boise State. He takes risks when he doesn't have to. There's been a couple like boneheaded mistakes, like when he clapped out of frustration at the end of the first half against Texas A&M. Like, it hasn't been perfect, but it has been way better than I expected, and I had really high expectations for him going into the season. Now, a player that I didn't have super high expectations for, it's not that I was down on him, I just thought he was the third or fourth best wide receiver on the team, is Jordan Faison, and that is the second biggest surprise to me. Just Jordan Faison's production this season has been really a positive development for Notre Dame's offense, and I think part of that has to do with the fact that C.J. Carr is really, really good, and he has a great quarterback throwing him the ball. But when we talked about this wide receiving core in the offseason, obviously we knew Malachi Fields was going to be the starting boundary wide receiver. Big body, had produced at a high level for Virginia the past couple of years. So expectations were really high for him, and expectations were really high for Jaden Greathouse coming off his 2 games in the college football playoff that were 2 of the best games we have seen from a Notre Dame wide receiver in a really long time. So Faison was sort of an afterthought, also because he was dealing with an injury throughout all of last season. He hurt his ankle in the season opener against Texas A&M, re-aggravated against Louisville, so he was just not really himself all season long, and then by the end of the year when he was healthy, he was dealing with some drops issues. But it's really hard to say that there's been a wide receiver on this team that's been better than Faison. Like, Malachi Fields has made some amazing plays, but Faison leads the team in receptions. He leads the team in yards. He's tied for the lead in receiving touchdowns. He has 20 first downs on the year. He's forced 10 missed tackles. He's great in the short passing game, and he's already caught a couple deep balls as well. So he has been really, really impressive and just a huge boost to the Notre Dame offense because the field receiver has not really been a focal point of the offense, really in the past several years, like not even with Sam Hartman who could throw the ball, certainly wasn't a big part of the offense with Riley Leonard and Jack Cohn. Like, Jordan Faison is just a very dynamic player who we had high expectations for after his freshman season, but then considering he took a little bit of a step back during his sophomore year, I just didn't expect this level of output from him this season, but it has been a very welcome surprise for the Notre Dame offense. The biggest surprise in the defense for me, biggest positive surprise, I should say, is Tay Johnson. And he was the talk of fall camp when he went out there and had, 2 or 3 interceptions on the first day of practice, the only one in which the media was able to watch the full thing. And one of them was just one of the best plays of the entire camp. Like, went up in the air, picked a ball out of the sky on a pass thrown by C.J. Carr, and he was making plays all over the field. But he's still a redshirt freshman. He's also coming off an injury that he suffered last year, so it's not like he was able to get that many reps in practice. So I didn't really know what to expect. I thought eventually maybe he could start by, let's say, November, right? Once he's played a little bit more, he's gotten out there, played as a reserve player in the secondary, but that has not been the case. He barely played it all against Miami, but then against A&M, he had to come out there because no one on the Notre Dame secondary outside of Leonard Moore was making some plays. So he went out there, he played well, he had a touchdown in that game on a blocked punt, and now he has taken over that starting safety spot opposite Adon Schuler, and he's played really well. Like, we haven't really seen many of those fresh and growing pains. It could happen, right? I don't want to jinx it. Let me knock on wood right here. But the way that he is just taking control of that position and played really well so far has been a really welcome surprise for the Notre Dame defense. Now, as for the disappointments, I think you know where I'm going with this. How bad the defense looked to start the year, that's obvious. I felt like they would take a step back on defense, but obviously not as big of a step back as they did to start. They didn't give up that many points against Miami, but they just didn't look like the Notre Dame defense that we were accustomed to seeing. And then the A&M game was a disaster. Not just guys not making plays for Notre Dame, but the fact that there were so many players just running free on Texas A&M. It looked so easy for them, and they honestly could have put up more points if Marcel Reed didn't miss a couple wide open guys downfield. So that was a big, big, big disappointment, and it looks like they've been able to clean it up for the most part, but still, that was jarring in the moment. I want to say disappointment, and I don't want to be too hard on the player, but Bryce Young's lack of production has been pretty surprising to me, and I think that it's just a mistake on my part because when I was talking about who's going to break out on this team when we were doing those offseason segments, Bryce Young was always my pick. I said that he could have a Stephon Tuitt level sophomore year like Tuitt had back in 2012 when he had over 10 sacks and basically helped carry that defense to the national championship. It just hasn't happened for Bryce Young just yet. It's not like he's been bad or terrible. Like, he has 11 tackles, he has a sack, and I'm still holding out hope that he can really break out this season. But I think the issue with Bryce Young is that he put on a lot of weight, not bad weight. He's just got really, really big, and I don't think he has grown into his body just yet. Like, he's massive. He's 6'8", 275 pounds, and that's a lot if you're an edge rusher. So it looks like he's not quite as explosive as he was last year. I think they'll get that figured out, and I still have really high hopes for Bryce Young as a player. It just hasn't worked out for him yet this season. And the last disappointment I would say is just the slow development of the offensive line. Look, we knew that it might not be working completely out of the gate. Like, they probably weren't going to be clicking on all cylinders going out against Miami, but they were just awful in that game. Part of that is probably due to how well Miami played on the defensive line. Like, I underestimated just how good Ruben Bain is, and Akeem Mesidor as well. Those guys are studs. Bain looks like a top 10 NFL draft pick, and he worked Notre Dame's offensive line. And yeah, part of that has to do with conditions. I mean, Emil Wagner had no chance. Anthony Knapp had to come out of the game because he was cramping. But still, they were really bad in that game. It cost them that game, you could say. And they took a step forward against Texas A&M, but it wasn't a big enough step up. Carr was still getting pressured. They got stuffed in a couple 4th and 1s and things like that. So that, to me, those have been the biggest disappointment so far. But we've already seen some steps in the right direction with the offensive line, the defense, and even Bryce Young. So hopefully those things turn around here soon. All right, next up, Hey Javion _ ask, once Jaden Greathouse returns from injury, how can he get more involved in the offense and make a bigger impact down the stretch? Well, Marcus Freeman said he is out this game against NC State, which is really disappointing because according to Jack Sobel from Blue and Gold, NC State is down to its 5th nickel this season after the first 3 got hurt, and then they had to move the 4th to safety. So they're just trying to figure out any working body that can play nickel, which to me means that this is going to be a huge game for the Notre Dame slot receiver. In this case, it's going to be Will Pauling because Jaden Greathouse is still dealing with that right thigh injury. But to me, they need to throw the ball to him downfield more. He's really good at making contested catches, probably second on the team behind only Malachi Fields. He had a big contested catch against A&M, and he had a great catch on the sideline against Arkansas, so we know he can do it. He also did it against Penn State last year on the big 3rd and 9 play when he went up and got it. Kind of changed the game for Notre Dame because they had nothing going offensively, and then obviously had 2 great contested catches against Ohio State. So I love Will Pauling running the short routes, moving the sticks and all that. I don't really like him running deep as much, even though he made a great catch on that slot fade against Boise State. I think those plays should be reserved for Jaden Greathouse. He's also much better than Pauling after the catch. I mean, we saw that when he had that spin move that put Caleb Downs, arguably the best defensive player in all of college football, on the ground, and then Greathouse went to the end zone. So if they could throw some more slot fades and screens to get Greathouse more involved and give him some opportunities to run with the ball after the catch, I think that would be great for him. And then let Pauling run like the out routes, the slants, the chain movers. Like when Notre Dame went to him on the 2-point conversion play against Boise State, that was so automatic because that is the stuff that Will Pauling is best at. But look, they complement each other well. Notre Dame is in a great position because they have so many talented wide receivers. Haven't been able to say that in a long time, but it's the truth, and it's been working for them so far. Just hope that Jaden Greathouse is back for that game against USC. All right, we got a couple questions on the defense here. At ND Wine and Cheese says, has Marcus Freeman taken a bigger role in shaping the defense, or has Chris Ash simply adjusted his approach? And Ray Todd asks, is the defense's improvement more about playing inferior offenses or the adjustments made by Chris Ash? So it's my understanding that after the Purdue game, Marcus Freeman was much more involved in the game plan during the week leading up to Arkansas. I have no reason to believe that he has stopped being as active because it's been working, right? The Notre Dame defense played really well against Arkansas. They played even better against Boise State, and it was necessary at the time. Like you could tell in the way that Marcus Freeman spoke to the media during his press conference, both in the immediate aftermath of the Purdue game and also in the Monday press conference and the days after, he was so fed up with what Notre Dame's defense was putting out there on the field. So I think he was more involved during the week, but he has never been the one calling the plays, contrary to some rumors going around on message boards. Marcus Freeman is not calling the plays. You know how I know that? Because he doesn't have a play sheet. It's kind of important if you're going to be calling the plays. So Marcus Freeman has not taken over play calling. Chris Ash has continued to call plays. But to me, the biggest change in this defense is just the personnel. They've picked out better guys, and some guys are just playing better. It's nice to have Leonard Moore healthy again after he was hurt for the entirety of the Texas A&M game and missed Purdue and Arkansas. Tay Johnson, we already talked about him. He earned the starting spot, and he's playing much better than Jalen Stroman did, especially in coverage. They still have a role for Jalen Stroman, but Tay Johnson is just a better player right now. Devontae Smith was back for Arkansas. That made a huge difference when Notre Dame was running out there with Carson Hobbs against Texas A&M. It was just a losing proposition for him. He wasn't ready for that moment. Dallas Golden has looked much better than Carson Hobbs at nickel because we know Devontae Smith has been dealing with more injuries. Dallas Golden has really stepped up his game, even though that they didn't rely on him that much early on. And Mark Zachary, he improved dramatically in a very short amount of time. Like when they threw him out there against Texas A&M, he wasn't ready for that moment. It didn't work out very well at the start of the Purdue game, but with every rep he got, he became a better player. That experience was helpful for him. And then against Arkansas, he had a terrific game. So that's the same player just playing better because he has more reps, he has more experience, and he's no longer a true freshman with his like looking like a deer in headlights out there, right? He's still a true freshman, but he's kind of gotten those first play jitters out of the way. So he played a lot better. And then on the defensive line, Gabriel Rubio is playing like a much better defensive tackle. So yes, the staff has simplified things. Marcus Freeman has been more involved, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the players just executing better. And lately, Notre Dame's defense has been executing at a much higher level than they did to start the year. All right, we've had some great questions so far. We're not done yet. Up next, a potential new Notre Dame tradition, first game day experiences, and some dream uniform ideas. Stick around. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is Jadarian Price's 49-yard touchdown run to put the Irish up 3 scores over Boise State in the fourth quarter. The team needed a spark, and Jadarian Price came through. It was arguably the best run of Price's career. He shed not 1, not 2, not 3, but 5 wannabe tacklers on his way to the end zone. It was an amazing play by the Irish running back, one of many that he has made this season. That's what keeps fans and players alike moving forward, always chasing the next great moment. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, we always like to wrap up the mailbag with some fun questions, and this one comes from a great username, @HoltzMyBeer. Why can't Notre Dame pull off a true green out like Penn State's whiteout? Wouldn't that be an awesome tradition for a big night game? This is a good question because I was at the green out against Louisville a couple years ago, and it was barely a green out, but I would attribute most of that to the fact that the weather just did not cooperate. It started raining like right when people started filing into the game. Everyone was wearing ponchos, and not everyone has a green poncho. So that was a complete failure when you look at the crowd and the amount of green that we could see. And I was not at Boise State, but based on what I was seeing from the television, it wasn't super green. I mean, there was a lot of green in the crowd. There's also a lot of blue from Boise State, but it's just a little bit different during the day, especially against a team like Boise State. I was at that game against Ohio State in 2023. That was the Irish wear green game, and I thought the crowd stepped up in a huge way. First of all, they prevented a ton of Ohio State fans from getting in. Yes, some did, but it was nothing close to like Georgia in 2017 or even Cincinnati in 2021. And there was just there's so much enthusiasm for that game against Ohio State. It was a night game, so they really leaned into the green out for that one. I mean, the players had the green on green jerseys, which, as I've said before in the show, I don't really love. But for that game, it made sense. And I just don't think that Notre Dame leans into the green out nearly as much as like Penn State leans into the whiteout. For them, that is part of the culture. That is part of the Penn State football program. I mean, hell, they're at war with Fox, even though that Fox is like the main television partner for the Big Ten, because Fox plays their games at noon, Penn State wants their whiteouts at night, and it's just been an ongoing back and forth over the course of the past several years. So I understand the sentiment here from Holds My Beer, but I don't really think anything is going to change until Notre Dame decides that every year the biggest home game is going to be a green out. Clearly, that's not the case this year because they could have picked A&M and they could have picked USC to be the green out, but they chose not to. This might be an unpopular opinion. As a matter of fact, it probably is. I don't really like the green jerseys, so I would prefer that the biggest games are just their regular Navy jerseys because I like it. Again, I understand most people would disagree with me on that, but if they really did want to lean into this, if they're going to say, hey, we're going to make green outs a thing, and they started making the biggest game of the year a green out, I'd probably buy into it, right? But they haven't really made that decision. If they do, I think fans would respond, but they've kind of been treating it like an afterthought, like making Boise State the green out game, They made Cal the green out game back in 2022. It's just different, right? So if they really decided this is the route they want to go, fans would respond, but it's honestly up to Notre Dame more so than it is the fans. All right, we got another question here from at Carlos Garzat 7061. He is going to his first ever Notre Dame game when they play Navy, or I should say first ever Notre Dame home game. What are the must do's, can't miss spots, and game day tips? So he's looking for do's and don'ts on game day. Well, look, I would say do arrive on Friday if you can. Getting into South Bend early lets you experience everything, like the campus is buzzing on Friday. There's also things like the Midnight Drummer Circle. There's just a buzz around a campus that's really fun. It kind of sets the tone for the whole weekend. But I would advise you to don't try to do everything. There is just too much to see and do in one day if you get there on Saturday morning. Like, pick the few must-see spots. Go see the Golden Dome. Go see Touchdown Jesus. Go to the Grotto. Light a candle. Go to the Basilica. Like, do all that stuff because it's mostly in the same area. You can spend enough time at each one without trying to, like, sprint across campus. You're not going to be able to do everything. The good thing is, if you're going to the Navy game, it's a night game, so you have more time around campus. But that would be the main thing. Like, pick the 3 to 4 things you really, really want to do. Maybe you want to go to the player walk. Try that. And that would actually be my next do. Take in the tradition. Pick one like the player walk. Maybe it's the bands march into the stadium. If it's the night before, trumpets under the dome. Like, the pageantry is what makes Notre Dame game day special. So slow down, soak it all in, let the campus atmosphere do the rest. Just kind of be selective and say, these are the things that we really want to do, and do that. Focus on that. Just don't try to do it all. And I would also recommend to try to do things locally, like grab a pizza from Rocco's, head to the linebacker lounge after the game, get a true South Bend bar experience. And if you're on campus, I would recommend making some time for the Knights of Columbus steak sandwich on South Quad. There might be a really long line. I personally haven't gotten one in a long time. I got them a lot more when I was younger, but they're really, really good. Again, going to be a long line, but it's worth it. And my last thing, don't underestimate traffic and don't underestimate parking. Plan ahead. South Bend can get really congested in a hurry on Saturdays, especially near Eddy Street and Angela Boulevard. So arrive early, give yourself plenty of time. You don't want to be rushing. You don't want your whole day to be ruined because you're stuck in traffic and you can't find parking. Know exactly where you want to go beforehand. Plan it out. Get there early and be patient leaving after the game. It's not going to be a whole lot of fun getting out of there. It's going to take some time, but just get there early. Be patient. You'll be glad you did. All right, last one. At Grant Pendleton 880, if you could add any uniform, real or hypothetical, to Notre Dame's rotation, which one would you pick? All right. I wish they just made the playoff jerseys that they wore last year. I wish they made them the permanent things. And there really wasn't a huge difference. They just added the names on the back of the jersey in gold, and they had like a little bit more of a metallic gold around the numbers. I've said it before. I want the names on the back of the jersey. They do it in the postseason. It works out fine. I think it's a sweet look. They should just do it all the time, especially in the NIL era. I understand, you're worried more about the name on the front of the jersey than the back, but I just think it's cool to have your name on the back of your jersey. So that would be the main thing. I think it's really simple. You just go with the jerseys that you already have, make them more part of the rotation. I'll admit, I'm a little bit old school. I'm a purist when it comes to the uniforms. I like them pretty simple. However, if we're going to add a new uniform, I already expressed that I don't love the green jerseys that they've been wearing, particularly the ones since they partnered with Under Armour. I did see a concept going around Twitter recently that was a new take on the green jerseys from like the Brady Quinn days, where it was a darker Kelly green. But in this new concept, I wish I had the account in front of me. The guy had like gold metallic numbers, so it was dark green with gold and gold pants. That looked sweet. So if they're going to wear green jerseys and they brought those out, I'm all in, right? The current green that they've been rocking, I don't know, it's a little bit too bright, looks a little bit too neon-y. It's probably not even a word, really, in my opinion. But I think if you were going to wear green jerseys, those would be the ones to go with. Those are sweet. And I did like the all-whites that they wore in the Shamrock Series game against BYU in Vegas. Those are really cool. I don't like the all-whites they wear that are just like their standard white jerseys and white pants as much. But if they're going to do all-white, those are some sweet jerseys. But that's going to do it for this week's Friday Mailbag. Thank you so much for making this your first watch or listen of the day and for tuning in all week long. If you have not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and if you're listening to the podcast, leave a 5-star rating and a nice review. I'd really appreciate it. So I'm going to have an instant reaction episode on Saturday night after the game against NC State. And then don't forget, Sunday Night Live returns at 8 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. We're going to go live on Sunday between the afternoon and the night, the primetime NFL game on Sunday night to break down the game a little bit more. Going to take some questions too. We had some fun doing it for the first time last week. We're going to try it again this Sunday. So until then, enjoy the game and go Irish.